why is this such a lively issue? And what is there about Columbus in particular that causes this mass sort of hysteria?
Well, I guess you began by putting your finger on what really matters here, which was the incomprehensibility today of sympathizing with what it was to be like somebody like Columbus, one of those heroes of the age of exploration, because Columbus really didn't know where he was going. I mean, nobody in those days who was engaged in these long-range voyages of exploration, which was a very completely new experience in the history of humankind. Columbus was the first person we know about to make a long voyage of exploration with the wind behind him. That's a really extraordinary fact, because nowadays, what every yachtsman wants is to have the wind behind him. But in those days, you didn't want that. You wanted to sail into the wind because you needed to come back. There's no point in discovering anything unless you go back to tell people about it. So ironically, they always sailed into the wind until Columbus came along and had this extraordinarily daring, audacious, adventurous idea of sailing with the wind behind him. So it was a really risky enterprise. Even if you're going out exploring in outer space nowadays, you actually know where you're going. You've got monitors telling you all the time what's ahead. Nothing like that existed in those days. So we're talking about a level of adventure which really isn't reproducible today. And I sometimes think that's really at the root of why people find it so hard to sympathize with these dead white male explorers. It's almost the worst thing in the world nowadays to be a dead white male explorer. And yet what they did was extraordinarily commendable in terms of the risk that they were willing to take, the adventure that they were willing to embrace, for the innovation that they were willing to back with their lives, because most of them died doing it. Columbus was rather exceptional in that he survived to die in his bed at home. But I guess, the really killing element that has made exploration the object of obloquy today is that it carried with it a terrible legacy of imperialism, of exploitation, of violence, which wasn't necessarily in the minds of the explorers themselves. Certainly it wasn't in Columbus's mind. He was like everybody else. He was a mixture of virtues and vices, but by the standards of explorers of his day, of regular guys of his day, he was actually, relatively speaking, a quite good guy. But the legacy has poisoned the renown.